Hello everyone, welcome back to online lecture series on heat transfer. Today we are beginning a new topic which is convection. So let's begin. So let's begin. While having our introduction part of this subject, I was telling you that there are basically three modes of heat transfer, that is conduction, convection and radiation. Out of this we have finished conduction, and the second mode of heat transfer is heat convection. And convection part specifically will be divided into three different parts. First will be introduction, second will be empirical correlations, and third will be of boundary layers. So first we will finish first part, which is introduction to convection. As we have already discussed about this, that there are two types of convection: free convection and forced convection. Okay, so first we will discuss about free convection. Circulation of bulk fluid motion is caused by changes in fluid density resulting from temperature gradient between solid surface and main fluid of mass. So what they are trying to say here is, let us say that here we are having a solid surface like this, which is let us assume for a while that it is hot. Let us put it as 100 degrees Celsius. Okay, and air particles will be flowing here. Okay, so this will be the flow of air over this heated surface. So there will be a circulation of bulk fluid motion, which is caused by changes in fluid density resulting from temperature gradient between solid surface and main mass of fluid. And here the temperature of air, let us consider it to be 25 degree Celsius. So there is a sufficient difference in the temperature. Because of that, there will be some changes in the density that we will see. Here the stagnant layer, this is important part, that is a stagnant layer. A stagnant layer of fluid film in the immediate vicinity of hot body gets thermal energy by conduction. So what they are trying to say over here is, there is a thin layer over here which is very near to the hot surface. This is the thin layer of fluid where the fluid velocity is 0, and here this fluid gets thermal energy by conduction. So in this small portion over here there is a conduction. Okay, and because of this conduction, the fluid particles which are present in this stagnant layer will get energy. So there will be an increase in temperature as well as increase in internal energy of fluid particles. And now, due to the temperature rise, the fluid particles become hotter, less dense and lighter. So whenever there is an increase in temperature, there will be a decrease in density. Okay, so you should remember this portion. So as the temperature is increasing, it will become lighter, and as you know that light air will move upward. So here the lighter fluid particles moves upward to a region of low temperature, that is this region. So we will consider this region to be a region of low temperature. So here this light fluid particles will move into this region where they mix with the transfer of part of energy to cold fluid. So this is the region where cold fluid is present. Okay. And as this cold fluid now will come downward, so this will come downward, okay, to fill the space which is vacated by the warm fluid particles. So what has happened here, that whatever the hot fluid particles were there, they will move upward in the cold fluid region, and the lighter and the low colder and heavy fluid will come down. Okay, so this circulation pattern, that is upward movement of warm fluid and downward movement of cold fluid, is known as convection current. So to explain this in very simple manner, the circulation pattern is like this. So as you can see, this red arrow is for hot and lighter fluid, and the green arrow is for colder and heavier fluid. So this is the circulation pattern that will be observed throughout this free convection phenomenon. These currents are set up naturally due to gravity alone, and they are responsible for heat convection. Now the next part is forced convection. Before going into forced convection, there are few examples of free convection. That is, first is design of furnaces, house heating systems, architectural projects, roads and concrete structures will be concerned with free convection. Okay, now we will go into forced convection. Here the flow of fluid is caused by a pump, a fan or by atmospheric winds. These mechanical devices, that is devices like pump and fan, provide a definite circuit for circulating currents that speeds up the heat transfer rate. Examples of cooling of internal combustion engines, air conditioning installations, and nuclear reactor, condenser tubes, and other heat exchanger equipment. So these are the examples of forced convection. Now there are two types of flow that we have already discussed in our introduction part. First is laminar flow and second is turbulent flow. So first we will see the laminar flow. Here the fluid particles move in a flat or curved unmixing layers. The important part is unmixing layers as well as flat or curved streams and follow a smooth continuous path. Here the path of fluid movement are well defined and fluid particles retain their relative positions at successive cross section of flow passage. So here let us say that it is flowing in this way. Let us take one example. So this is the way the streamlines can be observed in case of a laminar flow, and I have tried to show you with curved streamline. So this is the way the laminar flow can be observed. Okay, or it can be in this way also, that is the straight lines. Okay, so here if you see again this statement that paths of fluid particles are well defined and the fluid particles retain their relative positions at successive, CS means cross section of flow passage. There is no transverse displacement of fluid particles, that is the perpendicular to the streamline. So there is no movement of fluid particles in this direction or in this case this direction. So there is no transverse movement of fluid particle. Okay, the particles remain in orderly sequence in each layer. So one of the example for laminar flow can be soldiers on a parade provide an analogy to a laminar flow. Now the next part is turbulent flow. So this will be completely reversed to the laminar flow. Here the motion of fluid particles is irregular. The motion is irregular. Second, it proceeds along erratic and unpredictable paths. The streamlines are intertwined and they changes their position from instant to instant. So we cannot define a proper path in case of turbulent flow. So fluctuating transverse velocities are also superimposed on the main flow. So this is in previous case there was no transverse velocity component, while in this case there will be a fluctuating transverse velocity components, and the velocity of individual fluid particles fluctuate both the direction of flow and perpendicular to it. So the velocity keeps on changing in this case. A turbulent flow is adding and sinuous rather than rectilinear in character. Now this is all about laminar flow and turbulent flow. So this is the end of turbulent flow. Now we will see that which parameter or which terms decide whether a particular flow is a laminar flow and or a turbulent flow. So the nature of flow is governed by the following parameters. First is mean flow velocity, capital V. Second is density of fluid rho. Third is dynamic viscosity of fluid mu. And last is characteristic dimension of flow passage, for example diameter d of pipe. So this characteristic dimension is more important to understand right now, and we will see this in detail, that what is the meaning of characteristic dimension in nature of the flow. So grouping these parameters together, we can obtain, we can have a dimensionless number, which is Reynolds number, given by the formula rho Vd divided by mu. This is called as Reynolds number. Now this number represents the ratio of inertia force to viscous force. So this is equal to inertia force divided by viscous force. Okay. Now we will go in detail of this formula in later part of this chapter, but as of now you should remember that Re, that is Reynolds number, is equal to rho Vd divided by mu. Now this number represents again the ratio of inertia force to viscous force. So now at the low Reynolds number, the viscous force predominate and the flow is laminar. So the meaning is that at low Reynolds number, viscous forces are more than the inertia forces and the flow is laminar. Now at higher values of Reynolds number, the inertia forces overcome the viscous forces, overcome the viscous friction forces, and consequently the fluid layers break into turbulent flow. So whenever Reynolds number is higher, inertia forces are more than the viscous forces. For a fluid flow through a pipe, low Reynolds number up to 2300 is indicative of laminar flow. Whenever Reynolds number is between 2300 to 6000, laminar flow begins a transition to turbulent flow. So there is during this range, the flow transits from laminar to turbulent. Okay, and usually the flow is completely turbulent when the flow Reynolds number is greater than 6000. There is a mistake here, there should be greater than 6000. Now you should remember that whatever numbers written over here are only for a fluid flow through a pipe. Okay. Now when a duct is not a circular one, but let us say it can be rectangular, trapezoidal, or even annulus, formed by a tube within another tube. So these are the variations which are possible. So in that case, the characteristic dimension D in Reynolds formula, that is, we were writing Re equal to rho V d divided by mu. So this d in such case is an equivalent diameter, which is defined as 4 times the cross sectional area divided by the weighted perimeter. So here the formula is like this, that the equivalent diameter DE is equal to 4 times the cross sectional area divided by weighted perimeter. So once we go through examples, you will be able to understand this, that for rectangular cross section, length L and breadth B we can write down in this way, that cross sectional area is LB and weighted parameter is, here it should be perimeter. This is wrong. Here it should be perimeter. So here 2LB divided by L plus B. Now let us say that if we take a case of annulus which has inner diameter D1 and outer diameter D2, then the equivalent diameter is given by this formula. That 4 times the cross sectional area is pi by 4 d2 square minus d1 square divided by pi into d1 plus d2. So final formula is this, that is d2 minus d1. So this is the equivalent diameter in case of rectangle and annulus. Now our next theory is Newton-Raphman law or convection rate equation. Okay, let's begin. So here we have already studied this part in our introduction, so still we are repeating it. The equation for the convection heat transfer between a surface adjacent to a fluid is prescribed by Newton's law of cooling, which is given by this formula: Q is equal to HA Ts minus Tf, where Q is convective heat flow rate, capital A is the surface area exposed to heat transfer, Ts is surface temperature of solid, and Tf is undisturbed temperature of fluid. The constant of proportionality H, that is this portion, capital small h, this constant of proportionality H relates to per unit time per unit area to overall temperature difference. The value, the unit of H is given by watt per meter square per degree, and it is referred to as convective heat transfer coefficient or the surface conductance or film coefficient. Now the value of this film coefficient H is dependent upon, first is surface condition, that is roughness and cleanliness, second is geometry and orientation of surface, that can be plate, a tube, cylinder placed vertically or horizontally. So geometry as well as orientation is important. Third is thermophysical properties of fluids, that is density, viscosity, specific heat, coefficient of expansion, thermal conductivity. Then nature of the flow, that is laminar or turbulent. Next is boundary layer configuration, that we will see in detail. Prevailing thermal conductivity. Now our next theory, so these are the factors on which the value of film coefficient depends. Now next is Nusselt number. So here first of all we need to understand this figure very carefully. Consider a heated wall surface. So this surface, this is the surface which is heated one. Okay, let us say this is at higher temperature, the same example that we took, which is of 100 degrees Celsius, and let us say that the normal temperature is 25 degrees Celsius. Okay, so consider a heated wall surface which is at temperature Ts over which a fluid is flowing with undisturbed velocity u infinitive. So here the density, the velocity here is u infinitive, that is free stream velocity, and temperature is T infinitive. So in this case, this is the temperature T infinitive. The particles of fluid in intimate contact with the plate tend to adhere to it. So here the particles which are very near to this surface will try to stick to it, and a region of variable velocity builds up between the plate surface and free stream as shown in the figure. So here let me erase this again, and we will focus on this figure in very detail. So I hope it is fully visible on this screen. And here kindly focus over here, that let us say that this is the heated fluid, okay, at around 100 degrees Celsius, and there is a flow or stream of air passing over it. Now this stream has two parameters. First is free stream velocity, which is defined as u infinitive, and temperature, which is denoted as T infinitive. Okay, now this is the region now the one region that I want to define over here is this region, where there is a variation in temperature and variation in velocity. So this will change in this region, and above this, that is above this over here, it will be equal to u infinitive and T infinitive. Okay, so here this fluid particles will, here the fluid particles in this region will try to stick to it. Because of that, there will be a variation in temperature as well as velocity. So as you can see that as we move away from this plate, as we move away from the plate, this is the velocity profile. So velocity is increasing as we move away from the plate, and at the very near to this plate, velocity is almost zero. And here if you see, this is the temperature profile. Here as we are very near to the plate, there is a the temperature of air is higher, and as we move away, the temperature keeps on decreasing. Okay, and there is a separate chapter on this that we will discuss later on, but as of now you can accept these two curves. So here the fluid velocity decreases as it approaches the solid surface, reaching to zero, which is also known as no slip condition in the fluid layer immediately next to surface. This thin layer of stagnant fluid, where the velocity is zero, this, when it reaches to zero, this layer of stagnant film has been called as hydrodynamic boundary layer. So here in this region, the quantity of heat transfer is highly dependent upon fluid motion within this boundary layer, and it is being determined chiefly by thickness of the layer. and the thickness of the layer delta is arbitrarily defined as the distance y from the plate surface at which the velocity approaches 99% of stream velocity. So if you go back and see, this formula is written over here for the hydrodynamic thickness, that delta is the value of y at which capital U is equal to 0.99% of U infinitive. So that is the criteria on which we are defining the hydrodynamic boundary layer. Likewise, a region of fluid motion near the plate surface in which temperature gradient exists is known as thermal boundary layer, as shown in the second curve, and the thermal boundary layer thickness delta T. Delta T is defined as the value of transverse distance y from the plate surface at which this condition satisfies. So here this is nothing but previously what we were having, U is equal to 0.99 U infinitive to define the hydrodynamic boundary layer, now boundary layer thickness. Now to define the thermal boundary layer thickness, this equation slightly looks different, but it is very similar to this, that delta T is equal to 0.99 delta T infinitive. Okay, so delta T is nothing but Ts minus T or Ts minus T infinitive in this second case. Now at the plate surface, that is near to the plate, there is no fluid motion and the energy transport can only occur by conduction. So from energy balance, this heat transport must be equal to the heat transferred by convection to the rest of the fluid. So what it is trying to say, that let us say here this is our hot plate, and let us say that here we are having that thin layer, and beyond that we are having normal fluid layer over here. So what they are trying to say, that here up to this part where the velocity is 0, here conduction is happening, and beyond that on this portion convection is happening. Okay, so that is the meaning of this statement, as well as the energy balance will give us that this conduction is equal to this convection. So let me erase this part. You can draw if you want, but it is not very important for this theory. So the formula can be written in this way, that this first portion is conduction based on the Fourier's law, and second is the equation for convection based on the Newton-Raphman law or Newton's law of cooling. So based on that, as you can see, this differentiation is at y equal to 0, that is at the plate surface. Now conduction is equal to convection, and H can be written as minus K over Ts minus T infinitive del T over del Y, y is equal to 0. So here H, this value of H can be evaluated from the knowledge of fluid temperature distribution, that is del T over del Y with Ts minus T infinitive in the neighborhood of surface. Introducing the characteristic dimension L. So what we have done here, see, in this formula we have taken this k over here in the denominator, and we have okay, I will do it over here for you. In this equation it is h over k is equal to minus dt over dy, where y equal to 0, divided by Ts minus T infinitive. Okay, and if you see carefully, instead of del we have written d, because we are assuming that temperature is dependent only on y now. So now what we have done over here, that we have multiplied with L on both the sides, on LHS and RHS. So now this L can be taken into denominator of denominator. So HL by K is equal to minus dt over dy at y equal to 0, divided by Ts minus T infinitive over L. Okay, and if you see, the same formula is written over here also. So here if you see, we have modified this in this way. I think if we can copy this. So if you focus on both the formulas, on the numerator we have taken the differentiation Ts minus T and Ts minus T infinite. So actually Ts minus T infinity is already constant, but we have taken it into differentiation, and once you differentiate this, the negative sign will be as it is, and we have taken this dy in the denominator, and we have taken L into differentiation. So this both equations are mathematically equal, and you can understand it by yourself. So this parameter HL by K is known as Nusselt number, and it is interpreted as ratio of temperature gradient at the surface to an overall or reference temperature gradient, and this term represents the dimensionless slope of temperature distribution curve. So this is nothing but differentiation of something very similar to dt by dx, that is temperature distribution slope. Okay, so this is all about Nusselt's number, and it is a convenient measure of convective heat transfer coefficient. Now here, okay, the same slide is repeated. So our next theory is force convection relation. So the question is, this is something like a numerical one. Show by dimensional analysis that data for forced convection may be correlated by an equation of the form Nu is a function of Re, PR, where Nusselt number Nu is equal to HL by K, Reynolds number Re is equal to VL rho by mu, and Prandtl number PR is equal to mu Cp by K. So this is our question, and this is the formula for forced convection. So here if you see that this will be our heated plate whose temperature is Ts, okay, and here this is a blower through which the air is coming out and it is passing over this plate. The length of this plate is L, the fluid flow velocity is capital U, the fluid temperature is Tf, the surface temperature is Th, and heat is passing from this hot heated plate to the air, and the heat convection coefficient is small h. There are other fluid properties which are present like U, G, K and Cp that we will see. Okay, so this is the figure for forced convection relation. Now this is the very important table for you people that you should understand. So here this is the important variables contributing towards forced convection. First is fluid viscosity, symbol is mu, and dimensions are given in this way. Second is fluid density rho, dimensions are m, L minus 3. Fluid thermal conductivity K, H, L inverse, T inverse, theta inverse. Here H stands for energy term, that is joule, L stands for length, T stands for time, theta stands for temperature, and M stands for the mass. Fluid heat capacity Cp, which is given by H M minus M inverse 1, theta inverse 1, temperature difference delta T, that is the temperature difference between this heated surface and fluid flow. Then fluid velocity V given by L1 T minus 1 over here, plate length L which is given by L, and heat transfer coefficient which is given by H, and the dimension for it is H, L inverse 2, T inverse 1, theta inverse 1. So it is very important that to obtain this relationship you should aware of these variables, their symbol and their dimensions. And in our previous subject of fluid mechanics we have already studied about how to obtain these dimensions. So we are not going to repeat this part again. Before we go into our derivation, you should pause this video and draw this figure as well as draw this table that will be helpful in our derivation. So there are actually two methods to obtain this relationship, Rayleigh's method and Buckingham's pi method. So in this chapter and in this lecture series we are going to utilize Buckingham's pi method. And it can be premised that the functional relationship is this, that is function of mu rho k Cp delta T V L H is 0. So as you can count, there are total 8 physical quantities. Out of that 5 is fundamental units. Which 5 fundamental units? M, L, T, H and theta. Okay, so there are 5 fundamental units. So there will be 3 pi terms in our problem. And here we will choose mu, that is fluid viscosity, thermal conductivity K and velocity V, along with L as core group variables, and to establish the pi terms as follows. So for the remaining part, we will go into our virtual board to complete this derivation. So we will keep it over here. So let's begin the derivation of this relationship. We will first begin with pi 1 term. Let us say pi 1 is equal to mu raised to a k raised to b v raised to c l raised to d, and repeating variable will be, the next variable will be rho. So now one by one we will put the dimensions of each term. The dimension for pi term will be nothing, so we will put 1 over here. Then for mu, as it is written over here also, it is m1 l minus 1 t minus 1 a. Then we will have fluid thermal conductivity K, that is H1 L minus 1 T minus 1 theta minus 1 B. Then we have velocity, so L1 T minus 1 C. Then we have L, that is for length, so L1 will be, power will be D. Then we have density rho, that is M1 L minus 3. So now we will do this dimensional analysis part here. So 1 is equal to m raised to a plus 1. See, I will not go into detail as we have already done such kind of stuff in our previous semester. So I will directly keep on writing this question. So I have done nothing but combining the powers of m, l, t, h and theta. So here, based on this comparison on both sides, we will be getting b equal to 0, a equal to -1. Then we can continue with this third term, which is t term, which is -a, -b, -c equal to 0. So here it will be 1 minus c equal to 0. So here we will be getting c equal to 1. And we have already obtained b equal to 0 and a equal to -1. So we can take this L power and we can obtain the value of d, which is in this way: -a minus b plus c plus d minus 3 equal to 0. So here a is here, instead of here we can write down a plus 1 plus d minus 3 equal to 0. So here also the value of d will be 1. So we can now write down in this pi term again that here pi 1 is equal to mu raised to -1, k raised to 0, so it will not appear, v raised to 1, L raised to 1 and rho. Here it is not, see, here it is 1. So the final pi term we are getting is rho v L divided by mu. That is our first pi term, that is pi 1. Okay, now we will move forward with our second pi term. So it will be pi 2 equal to mu a kb vc ld and cp. So here m1 l minus 1 t minus 1 a, then k, which is h1 l minus 1 t minus 1 theta minus 1 b, l1 t minus 1 c, l1 d, and last term is h1 m minus 1 theta minus 1. So let's combine them together. So here we will be getting m raised to a minus 1 l minus a minus b plus c plus d, then time parameter, that is minus a minus b minus c, then we have h term, that is b plus 1, and then we have theta, which is minus b minus 1. So here the dimension is 1 for a pi term, so we will be getting a equal to 1, b equal to minus 1. Then to obtain c, we can write down minus a minus b minus c equal to 0. So here it will be c equal to 0, because here by putting values of a and b, c will be 0. And finally the value of d, which is a minus b plus c plus d equal to 0. So ultimately we will be obtaining that d is also 0. So D is 0, C is 0, A is 1 and B is minus 1. So after all we can put it again in our main equation, that is pi 2, that is mu raised to 1, k raised to minus 1, v raised to 0, L raised to 0 and Cp. So the answer is 4 pi to mu Cp by k, that is the pi 2 term. Now we will derive pi 3 term. So for pi 3 it will be mu raised to a, k raised to b, v raised to c, L raised to d and h. So here m1 L minus 1 t minus 1 a, instead of k we will have h1 L minus 1 t minus 1 theta minus 1 b, L1 t minus 1 c, L raised to d, and for h we will have h1 L minus 2 t minus 1 theta minus 1. So m raised to a plus 1 L raised to minus a minus b plus c plus d minus 2 t minus a minus b minus c minus 1 theta. For theta I think it should be minus b minus 1. For h it should be b plus 1. So while comparing we will be getting, here it is 1, so a is equal to minus 1, b is equal to minus 1. So when a and b are minus 1 we will be getting, just wait, I need to check it again. For a, here plus 1 is not there, this is h, so a will be 0, this will not be there, so a is 0, b is minus 1. So after that we will be getting 1 minus c minus 1 equal to 0, implies that c equal to 0, and for d it will be like 1 plus d minus 2 equal to 0, so d equal to 1, d equal to 1. So these are the quantities that we have obtained. So finally we are getting the value of pi 3 equal to mu raised to 0, k raised to minus 1, v raised to 0, L raised to 1 and h. So the pi 3 term is HL by k. So this is the value of pi 3. Okay, so here when we combine them, function phi of pi 1, pi 2, pi 3 equal to 0, that is function of rho v L by mu, mu Cp by k, HL by k equal to 0. So HL by K is function of rho VL by mu into mu Cp by K. So we are getting that Nusselt number is function of Reynolds number and Prandtl number. So hence we have proved that relationship which is in this question. So in this way, using Buckingham's pi theorem, we have derived this whole formula. Okay. So this is the end of today's lecture. I hope you have enjoyed this. Thank you for watching this video.